Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right. Man, thank you all. I love you all. Please continue to help me build a worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. Click your notification button. Make sure everybody uh, is aware when all the videos come out, right? Um, Man, thank you all so much. This is a beautiful day, as you can see. Man, oh, and now see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what you call synchronicity at its finest. Now, some of you who watch my channel may be aware that birds are my spirit animal. I just looked over my head to see this. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Oh, what a number. Thank you all, family. Man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Look at that, folks. Huh? See the family come to give me that signal? You see that? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Folks, you can't make this kind of stuff up. That was completely unscripted, just so you know. Man, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. So, the more you continue to awaken, you find yourself having more synchronicities like that. You find yourself more in tune, connected with, and aligned with all of nature and creation, right? Call it one of the perks. I can give you a million stories, beautiful stories of me and nature and creation. Man, whether it be birds, animals, insects, beautiful, aquatic beings. I've had some wonderful, magnificent experiences. Okay, so back to the focus of the video, right? Man, this is uh this is an interesting one. I'm gonna take that as a sign of the importance of this video, right? Because I know it's a lot of folks out there that are still struggling with low vibrational frequency energy. We have seen polarizing, right? We've seen what is referred to as the split, where, folks that are coming from a place that is a lot more high vibrational frequency, right? A lot more uh and here's my cousin pulling up, giving me more high vibe energy. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. I'm gonna finish this video right now, but I'm gonna call you in a second. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Mad love. See, that's nothing but beautiful. All this love and energy, right? You know, um, just more affirmations. Yeah, that's the word. That this is indeed an important video. So let's get into it. All right. So the subject matter is somewhat esoteric, right? But for many people, this is a very real issue and subject. Now, I have made videos talking about the difference between darkness and quote unquote evil, right? Revealing that it is actually human consciousness when applied to the blind energy of darkness, because that's what darkness is, a blind energy, right? Blinded away from the ultimate light or the ultimate source of information, that which emanates from the creative source. All right. So, and darkness, or the degree of darkness, is whatever the degree in which that particular energy or entity uh, energy or modality, whatever, is immersed in darkness is reflective of the degree to which it is cut off from information from the creative source, right? All right. Or has turned its back or cut itself off. So I talked a little bit about that, and understanding that it is human consciousness applied to that darkness, which actually formulates and gives a picture or a face to evil, right? Um, Understanding that we actually create evil, right? And that it is our consciousness, it's sort of our imaginations run loose, that has led to the many different manifestations and formations that we would refer to as evil throughout the history of mankind on the planet, humanity, should I say, rather. And this subject pretty much ties into that. Um, and I believe I've made previous videos where I touched a little bit on the subject of what they refer to as spiritual possession. Now, it's actually not that, folks, because as I've spoken about in many videos, you are far greater than most of us are aware of, right? Your spirit is massive. Truly. You cannot house an individual's entire spirit in a physical corporeal unit, right? Especially not one of this size. Um, you have some of your spirit within your corporeal being, your physical being, and it is tailor made for your human experience, and that is what you call your soul, right? But the entirety of your spirit is massive. Truly, you are far greater uh, than you realize. In fact, your spirit is directly of the creative source. Your spirit is the creator's energy expressed in that way. I'll leave it at that. So, being so divine and magnificent, there is no such thing as possessing one's spirit, right? What we actually have is the consciousness of that individual being hijacked, right? Or made subservient or made to think it's subservient within its own vessel. That's what we're actually talking about when we talk about spiritual possession. And it is becoming subservient to a low vibrational frequency energy and or entity, right? If we're talking about an entity, we need to first establish right now that entity is parasitic. Hmm? Why is it so important? Right away, we establish that about possession. That we're talking about a parasitic entity, right? If it's an entity at all, we may be talking about a situation where that person is just struggling with a very pool of dark energy, a very powerful pool of dark energy, and may not even be quote unquote an entity, right? But that's a differentiation that we actually can make a whole nother video about. Um, but whatever the case may be, unfortunately, there are techniques known by many in the esoteric community, particularly um, those of the disciplines held by quote unquote secret societies, right? And, you know, witch, quote unquote, witch covens as well, sorcery, all that, right? I told you it's very esoteric in some ways, and in some ways, um, it's actually more scientific when you apply that to it. which I think is something that most people don't think to do. Most people don't think to apply science to something that is esoteric, right? Or to something that is quote unquote spiritual in nature, or you know, what is the word we would use? Supernatural, I guess, right? Um, Most people don't apply science to that, which, you know, often leads to more confusion, and that's understandable, but that's all right. Um, but yeah, man, these things are most often things that are something we tend to push to the back of our minds, something that we have come across or experienced as a phenomenon that we tend to give the closest approximation or the best explanation for that we can formulate. Okay, so I'm not going to go on for another hour about why we form folk tales and myths and etc. But you get the picture. And so we have spiritual possession, right? Um, this comes about when an individual, a person, is brought to or is caught at, or is through some means lowered in their vibrational frequency. They're caught at a very low place in terms of where they are resonating, right? Um, and quite often, remember, folks, the lowest vibrational frequency that you can hold is one of fear, right? Which is important considering that we live in a fear society, unfortunately. Well, it's good that we know that, giving us ample opportunity to change it, right? But fear being of the lowest vibrational frequency, it's often um, utilized as one of the most efficient tactics to lower someone's vibrational frequency low enough to make possible uh, ways to compromise their consciousness, right? So there are a lot of ways and tactics in which to do this. Um, I don't want to get too descriptive because it can be very dark, right? It includes violence, right? It can include violence. It can include um, mental mental games, but games is probably a bad word. Mental tricks might be a better word, right? Uh, Different ways to interact with in a negative way one's psyche, right? Um, to increase insecurity in that person, right? To destabilize their mentality, right? Um, Remember, folks, fear is not always the obvious forms that if something's burning, we get trapped in a burning car. Obviously, you're afraid of being burnt up in the car, right? You're in the wilderness and you took a wrong turn and some wild animal jumps out at you. You may be afraid of being attacked by the wild animal. Those are very obvious forms of fear, but there are other forms of fear, like the fear of failing at something, right? Or the fear of being ridiculed or not accepted. Intangible fears that often are more numerous and in many ways more impactful to your psyche than those that are more obvious, right? So whatever the tactic used, a person is brought to a very low vibrational frequency. And at that point, at a very low vibrational frequency, um, your consciousness is at a place that is very tenuous, right? And the connection to your soul, which is that part of your spirit that is prepped for your life in humanity for this lifetime, right? Um, your connection with your soul can be interfered with, right? Um, there are things of this world that are not inviting to the energy of your soul. Your soul is pure, and again, remember that's part of your spirit, right? So being put in a situation or scenario, right, um, where you're having to deal with such a low vibrational frequency state, that connection can be compromised, right? Can be jeopardized, in fact. And remember, it's the connection and the symbiosis, right? The symbiotic relationship between all of the aspects that make up you, that give you this lifetime, right? Your consciousness, your physical body, your the part of your spirit that lives your humanity, which is your soul, all right? All those things in sort of a concert give you your lifetime. Well, if one of those vital areas is compromised and pushed to jeopardy, right? Um, Here's where you have the unfortunate recipe for a person's consciousness being hijacked or pushed aside. Um, Folks, there are some things that may be difficult to believe, but unfortunately, we got to sort of put our adult pants on, our big girl, big boy pants on, and accept reality and just move forward, right? There are things that many of us have nuzzled into a sort of comfort zone to just say what is and what is not. But we live in a time now that we're finding out that many of the things that we thought were not are, and many of the things that we thought were are not, right? So keep that in mind as I move further talking about this. So keep in mind, and this is sort of interesting because and it's necessary because as I go further in this, I recognize that there are boundaries that we need to push in our understanding and our accepting of reality or what we cognize to be reality, right? For example, folks, the UFO subject has reached a fever pitch. It has reached a precipice. We are at a point now where it simply cannot be denied the existence of UFOs or what they're now referred to as UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomenon. Um, for those who may have just not be aware of what's going on, um, there's been open hearings in Congress about UFOs, historic, right? Especially of this depth and level of information being offered, particularly by the level of credible witnesses, right? We're talking about um, highly decorated pilots. We're talking about individuals who have top notch clearances in the government stepping up to speak about some of these things. And the bottom line is the cat is out of the bag, so to speak, right? Not that I particularly like that saying. Um, the bottom line is that UFOs do exist. We do know. Oh, and then I didn't even mention the fact about Mexico releasing findings of UFO, or excuse me, of extraterrestrial remains that they have. And I put up the quotation mark because some of these beings may be extraterrestrial, or they may be interterrestrial, or they may in fact even be extra dimensional. But that's a whole nother video as well. All right. So back to this. We now know that those things exist. Why do I sort of sidebar to mention that? Because it pushes the envelope in a similar way that this is pushing the envelope. In a similar way that many people would have said, you know, just 5 years ago, before these things have taken place, oh, UFOs don't exist. There's no such thing as extraterrestrials, right? And they would say so with confidence, and you would have individuals even in, well-respected positions of life or places who would echo the same sentiment. Now all of that is changing, which is causing us to push the bar of what we expect and accept is our reality. Okay? Now that we've pushed the bar on that subject, and now that we understand that, yes, in fact, we do have um, extraterrestrials and UFOs, UAPs, and things along the lines of that subject matter that may have been very difficult to believe, um, now being revealed, right? Um, and because of that, again, that puts us in a position to push the envelope, right? Um, and to talk about and start to expand our conversations into things that, again, before most of us would have readily been dismissive of. Okay. Now we find ourselves in 2023, right? In in an atmosphere where we don't have the option to simply be dismissive of everything that is esoteric or that is expansive beyond our current understanding of what is real and what is not, right? Um, Folks, this is, if I were to take this and expand it into the world of physics, the conversation gets even that much more sort of surprising, we'll say, right? But we need to understand that our reality, the way that we understood it, is different, right? And it's changing. And our understanding of it is fluid and it's changing. So I said all of that to get you at a point where your mind is less filled with dismissiveness, right? Okay. So now that 23 minutes in, we're at this place, we could start to think about these parasitic entities. Now, folks, again, so that this is not so far fetched, I've even seen videos made by National Geographic that talk about the parasitic world, right? And I've even seen where they've gone and described this parasite that takes over ants. Okay, now just to describe it a little bit, it's a small parasite that actually invades the ant's brain. Okay, and the way that this parasite affects the ant is that it is seemingly clever in its ability to hide its presence, if not to the ant itself, certainly to the other ants surrounding the infected ant. Pardon me. And it will actually cause the ant to behave in a, I'm trying to find the right word here, folks. I started to say in a nefarious nature, but that's not really it. It will cause the ant to behave in a way that it relies on and uses subterfuge. Now, what do you mean? Okay. This parasite is literally just using the ant to get to its end goal. Okay. The ant is not its end goal. Once it has invaded the ant's brain, it literally takes control of the nervous system of the ant and of the ant's bodily function. Okay? So this infected ant will move around and will mix in with the other ants, right? Pretty much undetected. And it will behave in a similar way, if not the same way as all the other ants, and do pretty much everything the other ants do, except for here is where it gets really, really interesting. Because if you know anything about ants, you know that like bees, they are hardwired into their purpose, right? They live specifically to fulfill their duty to the rest of the colony. Okay? So if you see a group of ants that have located a food source and are breaking down that food source and carrying it um, back to the nest, or rather the, I forget the correct name for an ant nest, right? The ant hill. But anyway, back to the colony, to the rest of the collective. Well, when they're doing that, they are ultra efficient, right? And ultra locked into their task. They're ultra organized. You see literal lines, right? Literal lot. You'll see them in efficient line, more efficient lines than human beings make. You'll see them marching long lines, right? I'm talking about, you think about how small an ant is, and there can be a line of ants marching food back to the collective that could be like, 1,000 times their size, right? It would be like human beings walking miles back to camp. Okay? So that infected ant will be going along with the rest of the ants until it catches wind or gets recognizes that it is close to livestock. How does it know that it's close to livestock? One of the main ways it knows that it's close to livestock is by the manure. Okay? Folks, this has been captured in time lapse video, right? Again, in several different specials. I know I saw one on National Geographic, right? Okay. So, but you can use that when you go and if go and look it up to research it yourself. And you'll see the ant, the infected ant only, out of all those other thousands and thousands of ants, will get out of line, will make make like a smooth little diversion out of line and take a different course, leading it back to the animal that dropped the manure, right? Because ultimately, the goal of that ant, or rather, the goal of the parasite within the ant, is to get to the animal that dropped the manure. Now, here's where it gets even more sort of outrageous, or even more almost unbelievable, the intelligence and the cleverness, the sneakiness of this parasite. It causes, it knows that these cow, let's say it's a cow, is the animal that dropped the manure, okay? The parasite somehow knows that these cows graze on certain things. So instead of that ant doing its job like it normally would be locked in to do, it goes to a certain flower or plant or whatever that animal is grazing on, the cow's grazing on, and positions itself right at the tip top of the blades of the grass, or the tip top of the flower, to be eaten and consumed by the cow, knowing that likely that small tiny ant will not be destroyed, will just be sucked down by this cow, and will be resting and existing in the cow's digestive tract, which was its goal the whole time. Now, think about that, folks. This parasite was clever enough, shrewd enough, and efficient enough to take over the body of an ant, a whole nother organism, a larger, likely more complex organism than the parasite itself. Took over function of the parasite, of the ant's body, right, and brain, and essentially turned the ant into like a remote control zombie, right? As it steered the ant to a position where it could be consumed by the cow that was grazing, so that the parasite could end up at its eventual destination, which was its goal in the first place. That's deep. That's just what nature offers you in the parasitic world, folks. So you'll need to understand that unfortunately, it's not that far fetched that there are similar parasites that affect human beings. Wow. Deep. I know. And affect them in the same way in terms of taking over their mind, their consciousness, and their bodily function. I know. Pretty deep. Now, we have to expand that a little bit more, because we're not just dealing with some little tiny parasite that is affecting ants, right? We're dealing with other forms of parasites that can be associated with other phenomena. Unfortunately, some of those phenomena may fall into the range of things that are difficult for us to accept or believe. Now, I'm not going to tell you these parasites are reptilian parasites. They might be, right? I don't know. I'm not going to tell you these parasites are some modified version of the parasite that would affect the ant. I don't know. They might be, right? I do know that there are low vibrational frequency entities, right? Esoterically, um, generally of a fourth dimensional nature, non corporeal, but still very much real. And it is the latching on of these parasitic entities to human consciousness that largely accounts for that phenomenon that we refer to as spiritual possession. All right. Now, earlier in the video, I brought up certain groups um, that might be interested in how to hijack a person's consciousness. Well, I want you to think about something. Think about the shrewdness of that parasite that infected the ant, right? Think about now what I've told you about the quote unquote hidden masters and the connection between that and the group that we have referred to historically as the archons, right? And then how there is that connection to them in these groups, right? So if these archons feed off of low vibrational frequency energy, or esoterically referred to as loose energy, and that energy is produced by the misery, pain, hate, suffering, essentially just any form of really low vibrational frequency emotional or mind states, right? Emotional states or mental states produce that loose energy in human beings for these archons to feed on. So if their agenda is to produce this kind of energy in mass amounts, then certainly they will want to affect mass amounts of the populace to generate this loose energy. Well, what is a great way to do that? Well, a great way to do that, a nefarious way, but an efficient way to do that is to have certain human beings who are compromised by and uh, whose um, whose consciousness has been hijacked for that purpose, shall we say? Excuse me. um, One of those individuals could essentially, in the course of a day, go out with the mission to lower the vibrational frequency of every other person they come in contact with, and can likely, with such a nefarious agenda, be quite successful in lowering their own vibrational frequency resonance and that of individuals around them. Okay? So, understanding this, we understand sort of a system in place. And I made another video talking about this system, right? Of how the socially economic elite in their positions of power are supported and have been supported by their quote unquote hidden masters, right? Earning the uh, the devotion, right, and the subservience of these socially economic elites, right, and the groups that they form, these quote unquote secret societies that they comprise. Okay, so in that system, I talked about how you have very cleverly, you have a system where very cleverly around the world, people who would fit that description, right, of one way or another being having their consciousness compromised, right, are ensuring or have ensured previously an overall paradigm of misery, pain, and hate that produces massive amounts of that loose energy. that low vibrational frequency energy that these archons or low vibrational frequency entities, non corporeal, feed upon. Okay, so you got the system, you got the archons at the top, you got the elites beneath or subservient to them, you have them in various positions of power, whether it be government or the highest levels of industry all around the world. Okay. Hence, you have individuals in position to steer and dictate the way the world works, the paradigm. All right. So, we see then that it is beneficial to the overall agenda of these individuals to have the compromisation of individuals who can be deployed into the world, into their families, communities, etc., to essentially wreak havoc, to spread that darkness, to spread that low vibrational frequency agenda of the socially economic elite and the archons or the hidden masters that they serve. We can now start to form a picture where we understand a little bit. Oh, there's actually not only explanation that we can find for this phenomenon of spiritual possession, but we actually can find an agenda and those who would benefit from it. So, all right, folks, this has been a long video, and I've given you quite a bit to go and look into for yourselves. Please do that. Please start to understand or expand your understanding on this subject. Look out for videos that I'll be making in the future on how we can counteract all of that in the near future, very near future. And understand that it's our time. And that like I told you months ago, there were going to be things that would come out that would be tough for us to deal with, but we would just have to express, utilize, internalize spiritual maturity and the strength that comes with it to proceed forward in establishing a new paradigm, a better paradigm that does not produce the misery, pain, and hate and all the low vibrational frequency emotions and mental states that produce that loose energy to feed those who would feed from it. Instead, a new high vibrational frequency paradigm, one of peace, love, respect. It's time, man, and we ready to do the work. Come on with me. Let's get the work done. Worldwide movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq, I love you all. I'm proud of you all. We're doing it, man. We are actually doing the work to change the paradigm. I love you. I'm proud of you all. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, and let's continue to build what? The worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I love you all. I'm out.